It's June 1995, Little Rock, Arkansas. I had just graduated with my BFA in dance from Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, and this was my first professional show after graduating, with another show already lined up. After that, I wanted to move to New York City to pursue my dreams of making it as a dancer on the Great White Way. 1 week into rehearsals in Little Rock, I finally received my show shoes, some chunky police boots. I laced up and got ready to run the opening number of our contemporary version of West Side Story. Mia Michaels' choreography was electric, and I was giving it my all. Music starts, and 30 seconds into the choreography, I land the first big jump, and pop. Time stopped. That singular pop could have been the end of my dance career. Instead, it was just the beginning of my journey to becoming the physical therapist and athlete that I am now. Welcome to Cue the Burn, where performance meets grit and recovery is just part of the show. I'm your host, Mark Lusk, manual physical therapist, former professional dancer, and lifelong athlete who's still chasing the fire well into my 50s. This podcast is all about the science, stories, and strategies that fuel high-performing bodies. Whether you're on stage, under a barbell, or navigating the grind of urban life, from injury prevention to mental resilience, we're diving deep into what it takes to stay strong, mobile, and ready for whatever role life casts you in. Cue the music, cue the lights, cue the burn. Let's go. I'd soon find out that the pop I heard and felt was the anterior cruciate ligament in my left knee, or the ACL. That ligament provides stability in the knee, especially with jumping, cutting, pivoting, all of the things needed to be a dancer. I was able to finish the run of the show, but needed to wear a chunky knee brace and couldn't perform any of the choreography. I think just watching everyone else perform Mia's incredible work was more painful than the dozen times my knee buckled. As I canceled my next show and lined up my surgery back in Georgia, I had started physical therapy there in Arkansas in order to keep me as strong as possible before surgery. I still had faint hopes of being able to dance on the show, but the fact that my knee would buckle just walking down the sidewalk meant it wasn't possible. The physical therapy practice in Little Rock was a large chain of high-volume clinics. It was a big facility with lots of equipment and lots of people. I learned the exercises quickly and was often left to perform them on my own. At 22 and fresh from my college dance program, I was just about in the best shape of my life. I was still strong as long as I didn't do anything that wasn't straightforward. The workers' compensation case manager put an end to my PT, and soon enough I was back home in Atlanta having surgery. My high school dance teacher, Anna Maria D'Antonio, was the second person I told about my injury right after I'd called my parents. Anna Maria sprang into action and helped me to line up one of the best surgeons in Atlanta, a surgeon for the Atlanta Falcons, and some of the best PTs who just happened to be right at the end of my street. As a dancer or a professional athlete, your body is your career. So what do you do when your body fails, when your body betrays you? What do you do when your dreams are stronger than your ligaments? Likely, you fall into a hole. I was fortunate to be living with my parents again, that they were able to care for me and support me through my injury. But I was a different person that they had sent off to college, and now I felt like my life was collapsing around me. My ligament was ruptured, my dreams were in tatters, I couldn't work, and I was struggling to converge my new gay self in this old place where I grew up. I now had a direction in life, and finally I knew who I was. But coming out of the closet was still hard for me to do, and hard for my parents to hear. It was a challenging time for all of us in those months before and after surgery. I fell into a bit of a depression, I think, with being sidelined, unsure of my future, and feeling stuck in a place where I didn't feel entirely free. I felt like a caged animal. My PT sessions after surgery were a bit of a refuge. Their one-on-one care was incredible. It was a very different experience. They educated me on my injury. They created new exercises to challenge me. They wanted to know about my dance career. They were invested in my recovery. They understood me. They gave me hope. So, when I got a call from a company with an offer to do a short tour, I knew I had to ask my PT first. Looking back, I was only about 10 weeks out from surgery, Recovering from ACL surgery takes well over 6 months, closer to a year. Somehow I was cleared by my surgeon to take the job, maybe because I was assured that the physical requirements were minimal. And off I went, armed with a custom brace and an arsenal of exercises, to do a national tour of a children's theater show, whose name shall remain nameless. But I was back in the game. Flash forward a year, and I was moving to New York City with my best friend Johnny. I quickly booked a national tour of Singin' in the Rain, and then right after that, a national tour of a chorus line. My knee was holding up just fine, and I seemed to be on track to fulfilling my dreams. But while I was rattling around in the back of the tour bus of a chorus line, which is also abbreviated ACL, coincidence? A line from the show kept popping up in my head. What would you do if you couldn't dance anymore? What would you do if you couldn't dance anymore? As performers, our profession is our identity. It's the difference between I am a dancer and I work in finance. It's who we are. In the back of that bus and in the back of my mind, though, I kept thinking, maybe I'll become a physical therapist. They were so knowledgeable and they helped me to get back to dancing again. It's a hard question to ponder, though, because as artists and athletes, we're conditioned to believe that only the strongest survive. You've got to want this more than anything else in life. So, to entertain the question of doing something else is to question your own desires, and more than that, to question your own identity. We didn't dare to say it out loud, as others might question our own dedication to performing. But here's the kicker that no one tells you. Everyone else is thinking the same thing themselves. My last few years of performing were on and off. I had landed in a corporate job right after 9/11. The shows I wanted to do were fewer and fewer, and I was just getting complacent in the easier, more stable 9 to 5 life. My partner was picking out auditions for me more than I was myself. My performing career was grinding to a halt, and I slowly came to the conclusion that it was time for me to explore a career transition. I shadowed some other physical therapists. I researched PT programs here in New York City. I ran numbers and made a timeline, plotted out my life for the next 7 years. And then I made the leap. I was going to go back to school to become a PT. Have you ever seen the movie Thelma and Louise? There's a moment when Louise says something like, "Thelma, we're not going through Texas." That's how I felt about Times Square in the theater district. I didn't want to run into anyone I knew because seeing colleagues always started with the question, "How are you doing?" Which to me was code for, "What show are you doing?" I didn't want to talk about my transition out of the business. It felt like admitting defeat. It felt like failure. So I avoided that area at all costs for years. Flash forward, and I'm graduating PT school with my doctorate degree, and I've already lined up a job doing exactly what I wanted to do, working with dancers on Broadway. It was still an emotional adjustment for me to work with Broadway shows when I wanted to be on Broadway myself. But it was the perfect marriage for me. My personal experience of being a musical theater performer, auditioning relentlessly, doing 8 shows a week, and now exercising the other, systematic, methodical, mechanical side of my brain. I had a new purpose in life. So I'm not one to sit still. In my 15 plus years as a physical therapist, I've pursued and earned multiple specialty certifications. Each one has continued to inform and elevate my clinical skills as a PT. In 2016, I opened MVMT. I was tired of working in high volume clinics, spinning my wheels and feeling like I had concrete sneakers on. I didn't feel useful. Opening my clinic allowed me to serve dancers and athletes, incorporate my own experience as a dancer and athlete, and utilize my other skills from corporate America. I got into CrossFit. It started off as market research, and I had my butt handed to me. I was mildly humiliated after an intro class, but more so intrigued and challenged. I wanted to know more, and I wanted to be better at it. I needed to be challenged, and it has turned into an 8-year love affair now, and CrossFit has changed not only how I live my life, but how I practice as a clinician. And to take things one step further, I got certified as a coach and coached CrossFit for a year during the pandemic. But I think one of the biggest challenges of my career so far has been surviving the pandemic. MVMT moved into our current clinic on Friday, March 13th, 2020, the day after Broadway shut down. I had already signed the lease and finished 6 weeks of a build-out. We moved in and opened our doors on Monday, only to close them at the end of the day on Tuesday, for what we thought would be 2 weeks, 4 at the most. 10 weeks later, I returned to the clinic to see patients in person. It's been a slow climb back, but we're still here, and I'm so grateful to our patients and my team who saw us through. Those few years still feel stolen, frozen in time, but in many ways, I feel like we're just getting started. And there's still so much work to do for our patients and our community, performers and athletes. So here's the burn cue, the segment that, for me and hopefully you, is the key takeaway. The only constant is change. Things change. And the most resilient people I've seen are comfortable with change. As a new business owner, I had to learn to be comfortable with discomfort. And in all my careers, it's been a habit to identify with my career. But the biggest changes for me have happened when I've learned to separate myself from my work. My career successes and failures do not define me as a person. So, what would you do if you couldn't dance anymore? It almost doesn't matter because you will still be you. There's so many platitudes about life, but I'll leave you with this. Sometimes you just have to take the leap. And of course, dance like no one's watching. I'm Mark Lusk at MVMT Physical Therapy, and this is Cue the Burn. As always, check out our blog, our social media, and our website, www.mvmtpt.com, for more information and supporting materials. Please subscribe, like, and review our podcast, and make sure to share it with your friends and colleagues. See you on our next episode, and keep that fire burning.